The arena stretched before me like a metallic coliseum, its crystalline dome reflecting the light of 3 distant suns. At 5'10", I had never felt particularly short on Earth, but standing in this gathering of towering alien warriors, I might as well have been a child. I, Thomas Ward, former Terra Special Operations, was humanity's chosen representative in this ancient tradition of combat trials. The alien coalition had approached Earth 6 months ago, offering membership in their vast alliance of species. The catch? Each new species had to prove their worth through combat. Not war, they were beyond such wasteful measures, but rather through ritual combat that would demonstrate the species' strength, cunning, and spirit. I adjusted the simple combat suit they'd provided, its black material conforming perfectly to my body while still allowing full range of movement. Around me, warriors from a dozen different species towered above, most ranging from 8 to 10 feet tall. Their builds varied from serpentine to brutishly muscular, but all carried themselves with the quiet confidence of experienced fighters. The human appears to have wandered from its nursery, a voice rumbled above me. The translator embedded near my ear conveyed the mockery perfectly. I didn't bother looking up at the speaker, keeping my eyes forward as servants and officials scurried about, preparing for the ceremony. The atmosphere shifted suddenly, a palpable change in energy rippling through the gathered warriors. I finally looked up, and there she was, Queen Valkyra of the Nyxkari, supreme leader of the Coalition's military forces. At 12 feet tall, she made even the other aliens seem small. Her skin was a deep azure, marked with bioluminescent patterns that shifted with her movements. 4 arms, each capable of crushing steel, were adorned with ceremonial armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. She moved with impossible grace for her size, each step precise and measured as she approached her elevated throne. Her eyes, all 4 of them, swept across the gathered warriors before settling on me. I met her gaze steadily, refusing to show the fear that threatened to freeze my spine. Warriors, her voice carried effortlessly across the arena, you stand here seeking glory, honor, and the privilege of serving at my side. Some of you represent established member species, others fight for those seeking to join our alliance. Her upper right hand gestured toward me. Including our newest applicants, humanity. Murmurs and chuckles rippled through the crowd. I remained still, my face neutral. I had expected this reaction. Hell, I had counted on it. The trials will begin shortly, she continued. Each warrior will fight until defeated or until they stand alone. The victor shall earn not only glory for their species but also the honor of serving as my personal champion. Her lips curved in what might have been a smile. Choose your weapons wisely. They will be provided before each match. As the warriors began moving toward the preparation areas, I felt a presence behind me. Turning, I found myself facing one of the Queen's advisors, a tall, willowy being with silver skin. Human, it said softly, you may withdraw honorably now. There would be no shame. I smiled, finally letting some of my confidence show. With respect, I replied, I didn't come here to withdraw. I came here to win. The advisor's expression was unreadable, but its tone carried something like pity. Very well. May your gods prepare a gentle welcome. As I walked toward the preparation area, I could feel Queen Valkyra's eyes following me. Let them all underestimate me. Let them see my size and think me weak. They would learn, as so many had before them, that humanity's strength had never come from our size. The first match would be announced soon. And I was ready to show the galaxy exactly what the smallest warrior in the room could do. The first opponent they chose for me was clearly meant as an insult. Standing 9 feet tall, with chitinous armor naturally grafted to his reptilian frame, Xerox of the Krellar was known for crushing smaller opponents quickly. They expected him to make an example of me. To demonstrate why humans had no place in their coalition. I stood in the center of the arena, wearing only the basic combat suit. When offered weapons, I had selected just 2 items, a short combat knife and a length of high-tensile cable about 6 feet long. The crowd's laughter echoed off the crystalline dome as Xerox brandished his traditional war axe, its edge gleaming under the triple suns. "Begin!" The command rang out, and Xerox charged. I didn't move until the last possible moment. Years of combat experience had taught me the most valuable lesson: let them underestimate you. As his axe swung down in what should have been a killing blow, I was already moving. Not backwards or to the sides as he expected, but forward, inside his guard. The look of surprise in his compound eyes was almost comical as I slid between his legs, the cable wrapping around his ankle. His momentum carried him forward as I pulled, and 2 tons of alien warrior crashed face-first into the arena floor. Before he could recover, I was on his back, the cable now around his throat. He thrashed, trying to dislodge me, but each movement only tightened the cable. Within minutes, the mighty Xerox was unconscious. The arena fell silent. In the quiet, I heard Queen Valkyra's low chuckle. When I looked up at her throne, all 4 of her eyes were focused intently on me, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with what I hoped was interest rather than anger. They didn't wait long to send the second challenger. Naira, a female warrior from a species that seemed to be made of living crystal, moved like liquid glass despite being 8 feet tall. She wielded twin energy blades that hummed with deadly purpose. This fight was longer, more tactical. She was smarter than Xerox, more cautious after seeing his defeat. We danced around each other, her blades creating patterns of light in the air as she tried to corner me. But human joints are remarkably flexible, and I used every bit of that advantage. The end came when she overextended, trying to pin me against the arena wall. I dropped and rolled, my knife finding the single vulnerability in her crystalline form, the energy node at the base of her spine. She froze, then toppled like a statue. The third fight was the one that truly caught the Queen's attention. Vexthor, a warrior composed of what seemed to be living shadow-and smoke, was impossible to grab and nearly impossible to hit. For 10 minutes, we engaged in a battle that looked more like an elaborate dance, neither able to land a solid blow. Then I revealed why I had chosen the knife. Its blade was made of a material that conducted energy, and when I charged it against the arena's force field, it became a beacon of light. Vexthor's shadowy form couldn't maintain cohesion when faced with such intense illumination. The fight ended with him solidifying just long enough for me to pin him with a perfectly executed shoulder throw. As I stood over my third defeated opponent, breathing heavily but standing tall, I finally allowed myself to look directly at Queen Valkyra. She had leaned forward in her throne, her lower set of arms gripping the armrests while her upper arms were steepled in front of her face. The patterns across her skin were dancing rapidly now, and there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "The human continues," she announced, her voice carrying a note of something that made the other warriors stir uncomfortably. "Perhaps size is not the measure we should be using to gauge our potential allies." I wiped blood from a cut above my eye. Naira had gotten closer than I liked to admit, and bowed slightly to the Queen. "Permission to remain in the arena, Your Majesty," I called out. "I believe there are still more challengers waiting." Her lipless mouth curved into what was definitely a smile this time. "Granted, warrior of Earth. Rest assured, they will not keep you waiting long." As I moved to the challenger's position once again, I caught snippets of conversation from the crowd. The mockery was gone, replaced by speculation and, from some, concern. They were beginning to understand what humanity had learned long ago: it's not the size of the warrior that matters, but the size of their heart. And my heart was set on victory, no matter what giants they sent my way next. The fourth opponent made Xerox look small. Krilthan of the mountain clans stood 11 feet tall, his gray-skinned body rippling with muscles that seemed carved from stone itself. He carried no weapons, he didn't need them. His species could endure direct hits from artillery and shake them off like rain. This time, the arena's weapon masters offered me powered armor. I declined. Speed had kept me alive so far, and against someone like Krill then, being encased in metal would only make me a larger target. The mountain moved faster than something his size had any right to. His first punch cratered the arena floor where I had stood a split second before. The shockwave alone sent me stumbling, and I barely rolled away from a follow-up kick that would have turned my ribcage to powder. For 5 grueling minutes, I played the most dangerous game of my life, staying just out of reach, studying his movements. The crowd had gone silent again, but this time there was tension in the air. They weren't watching for entertainment anymore, they were studying, learning. Krill species had one crucial weakness: their joints needed to be exposed to allow movement. As he launched another earth-shaking punch, I finally saw my opening. The cable whipped out, wrapping around his knee joint at the exact moment he shifted his weight forward. The sound of his fall was like an avalanche. Before he could recover, I was on his back, the knife pressed precisely against a nerve cluster near his spine. The giant went rigid, then slowly raised his hand in submission. As I helped Krill to his feet, a gesture that seemed to surprise many in the audience, I caught Queen Valkyra making a subtle gesture to one of her advisors. Something was changing in the political currents flowing through the arena. The fifth fight proved this beyond doubt. My opponent was Silra, a warrior priestess from a species of energy beings who had to wear containment suits to interact with physical matter. Her suit was a masterpiece of technology, responding to her thoughts faster than most creatures could move. This battle wasn't just physical, it was a test of will. Every time she landed a hit, arcs of energy coursed through my body, trying to overwhelm my nervous system. Every time I struck back, her suit adapted, becoming stronger where I had just proved it weak. The fight lasted 20 minutes. By the end, my left arm was numb, I had burns across my chest, and my vision blurred from the energy exposures. But I had learned something crucial about her containment suit: it prioritized protecting her core systems above all else. The winning move came when I deliberately left myself open to a massive energy discharge. As it hit me, I grabbed her suit with my bare hands, letting the energy surge through me and back into her suit's systems. The power feedback created a momentary overload, just long enough for me to disable her suit's primary control node. As the medical teams helped me stand, I saw real concern on some of the warriors' faces. Not for my welfare, but because they were beginning to understand what it meant that humanity had chosen me as their representative. A species that could seem so physically unimposing, yet demonstrate such tactical prowess and sheer determination, was perhaps more dangerous than they had initially assumed. Queen Valkyra rose from her throne, her voice carrying across the now silent arena. "You have proven yourself worthy of facing our greatest, human warrior. Rest. Heal. Tomorrow, you shall face Krozak, my personal guard commander." As if summoned by his name, a shadow fell across the arena. Krozak stepped forward, and my heart nearly stopped. He stood as tall as the queen herself, his black armor bearing the marks of 1,000 victories. His 4 arms each held a different weapon, and his eyes, all 6 of them, fixed on me with predatory focus. "Tomorrow," he rumbled, "we shall see if your luck finally runs out, little one." I met his gaze steadily, even as the medical team worked to stop my bleeding. "Tomorrow," I replied, "we shall see if size truly matters in the face of will." The queen's patterns flashed brilliantly for a moment, and I swore I saw her smile. The medical technology of the coalition healed most of my injuries overnight, but they left the scars, a warrior's pride, they called it. Standing in the arena the next morning, I could feel every mark, every reminder of how I'd made it this far. Krozak's entrance was preceded by a hush falling over the crowd. The guard commander's armor seemed to absorb light itself, ceremonial patterns etched into its surface telling the story of his rise to power. Each of his 4 arms carried a different nightmare: an energy sword, a graviton mace, a phase shield, and a neural whip. "The final trial," Queen Valkyra announced, her voice carrying an edge I hadn't heard before. Begin. He moved like lightning. The neural whip lashed out first, its tip breaking the sound barrier. I ducked, feeling it pass so close it made my hair stand on end. The graviton mace followed, distorting the air itself as it swung toward my head. I had spent the night studying recordings of Krozak's previous fights. He had never lost, but every warrior had patterns. The challenge was living long enough to spot them. The first Real hit came 3 minutes in. The energy sword caught my left side, the blade's containment field burning through my suit. The pain was excruciating, but I used it, letting the momentum spin me away from the following mace strike. "You dance well, little one," Krozak growled, pressing his advantage. "But you cannot dodge forever." He was right. Each movement was bringing his weapons closer, his 6 eyes tracking my every feint and roll. The neural whip finally found its mark, sending spasms through my right leg. I stumbled, and the phase shield slammed into my chest. I felt ribs crack as I hit the arena wall. The crowd roared, expecting the finishing blow. Even Queen Valkyra had risen from her throne, her patterns pulsing rapidly. But in that moment of impact, I saw it. The pattern I had been waiting for. Krozak's weapons moved in a precise sequence, each strike setting up the next. Like a dance. Like a machine. And machines can be broken. I forced myself to stand, letting him see my weakness. "That all you got, big guy?" The taunt worked. He charged, all 4 weapons moving in their deadly pattern. But this time, I didn't dodge. I moved into the attack, ducking under the whip to enter the space between his arms. The weapon sequence, so perfect at range, became a liability in close quarters. His own armor blocked his view of me for a crucial second. My knife, kept hidden until now, found the joint between his armor plates, not to kill, but to sever the neural interface controlling his lower arms. The graviton mace and phase shield dropped. Krozak roared, trying to step back, but I moved with him, my cable wrapping around his upper right arm. He was stronger, far stronger, but leverage doesn't care about strength. The combination of his own momentum and my pull sent him off balance. As he fell, I swung onto his back, knife finding the secondary neural interface at the base of his neck. His remaining weapons clattered to the ground. The arena fell silent as Krozak, the undefeated guard commander, lay face down with a human standing on his back. "Yield," I said quietly. For a moment, nobody moved. Then, slowly, Krozak's hand opened in the gesture of submission. The silence broke. The crowd erupted in a chaos of voices, shock, outrage, and something like awe mixing together. But I was focused only on Queen Valkyra as she descended from her throne, her massive form moving with that impossible grace. She stopped before us, her 4 eyes studying the scene with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Then, to everyone's shock, she laughed, a deep, rich sound that echoed through the arena. "Well fought, Thomas Ward of Earth," she said, using my full name for the first time. "Very well fought indeed." The transition from warrior to Queen's champion was far from smooth. The coalition's political structure was as complex as it was ancient, and my victory had sent shockwaves through every level of it. Standing beside Queen Valkyra's throne, wearing the ceremonial armor crafted specially for my human frame, I could feel the tension in every glance cast my way. The first assassination attempt came within a week. A member of a traditionally isolationist species tried to poison my food with a toxin that would have liquefied my organs. What they hadn't counted on was the genetic modifications all Terra Special Operations operators received, including enhanced toxin resistance. I survived, and the would-be assassin learned that size had nothing to do with my ability to ensure justice was served. "They will not stop," Valkyra told me one evening, her massive form silhouetted against the gas giant visible through her private chamber's viewport. "You have disrupted centuries of tradition." "With respect, Your Majesty," I replied, reviewing security reports on my datapad. Tradition without progress is just stagnation. Her patterns pulsed with amusement. Over the past months, I'd learned to read her bioluminescence like a language of its own. You speak boldly for one who barely reaches my waist. Would you have chosen me if I didn't? The relationship between us had evolved into something unique in the Coalition's history. Not quite a romance, our species were too different for that, but something deeper than mere political alliance. We were partners in transforming the Coalition, though few understood how deeply that transformation ran. The integration of human military doctrine into Coalition forces proved revolutionary. What we lacked in size or natural armor, we made up for in tactical innovation and adaptability. My victory had opened the door, but it was the subsequent successes of human advisors and strategists that kept it open. Trade agreements followed. Earth's technology might have been less advanced in some areas, but our solutions to fighting larger opponents had produced innovations the Coalition had never considered. The first time they saw a human mech suit in action, allowing a 6-foot human to go toe-to-toe with naturally larger species, half the Coalition's military leaders immediately began negotiating for the designs. Not everyone was happy with the changes. The Krelliar, humiliated by Xerox's defeat, became increasingly hostile. Several elder species threatened to withdraw from the Coalition entirely. But Valkyra stood firm, and I stood with her. The Coalition was formed to unite species, not to enforce uniformity, she declared in a crucial assembly. Humanity has proven that greatness cannot be measured by physical stature alone. Their inclusion makes us stronger, not weaker. The turning point came during the Nexus Crisis, when a previously unknown species attacked Coalition space. Their ships were enormous, their weapons devastating. Traditional Coalition tactics proved ineffective. But the combined strategies of human ingenuity and Coalition strength prevailed, with smaller, more maneuverable human-designed craft supporting the Coalition's capital ships. Standing on the bridge of Valkyra's flagship during the final battle, I felt a shift in how the crew looked at me. The whispers about my size had stopped. What mattered was that I was there, fighting alongside them, proving that the strength of any species lay not in their physical form but in their spirit. You know, Valkyra said months later, as we watched the first joint human Coalition military exercises, some say I chose you that day in the arena because I saw a curiosity, a novel champion to prove my progressiveness. I glanced up at her, way up. And the truth? Her patterns rippled with colors I'd learned meant deep satisfaction. I chose you because you proved what I had long suspected, that true strength transcends physical form. You showed that adaptability, intelligence, and indomitable will could overcome any obstacle. She paused, all 4 eyes focusing on me. You gave us a future beyond our traditions, Thomas Ward. I smiled, watching as human pilots in mech suits trained alongside naturally massive Coalition warriors. We gave ourselves a future, Your Majesty. All of us, together. The galaxy had changed. The Coalition had changed. And it all started because the smallest warrior in the room refused to believe that size determined destiny. As Valkyra's patterns glowed with approval, I knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not by matching the physical might of other species, but by proving that true strength comes in many forms. And sometimes, the smallest warrior can cast the largest shadow.